It's Monday, everybody. It's the eve of Canada Day, the week of July 4th, Independence Day. And it's amazing as we get to these so called patriotic days that we look and reflect about ourselves and say, are we better off than we were 1 year ago? And if you are in Canada, you gotta say no. You really gotta say it's either the same or it's same crap or it's something worse or who knows what it is. But if you're in the United States, and there was an interesting statistic, Stuart, that was published, of course, by a left wing media, that Americans are not proud. They're not proud. Only 58% of Americans have any pride this week going into July 4th. But if you look at Republicans, they're like at the super high. And if you look at the Democrats, they're super low. And you want to know why, Stuart? Because they're
Why?
wailing and crying. They're wailing and crying that their version of America ain't there. There's an attempt at peace. There's an attempt at immigration control. There's crime being put under control. There's all these good things happening, and oh, America's bad. When will Americans realize that it's Donald Trump for the win? That he's actually slam dunking the ball on all of America? Let's see now. Welcome back, everybody, to the Rant Network. I'm David Solomon. He is Stuart Brisgell. We are the Rant Network. We apologize if you're seeing some funny glitchy thingies. Our streamer has changed its processes and it's a little bit weird this morning, so we apologize today if that's it. But in general, we don't change because after 5 years we're still unedited, uncensored, unfiltered, unapologetic, and we are uncaring really about how people feel about us, because all we do is talk about what goes on in the world, the absurdities of modern life, politics, culture, you name it, we're there. We're here to make you get angry, think, laugh, smile. I don't know, scratch your head. That's it. That's what we do here every Monday, Wednesday, Friday at noon Eastern. So sit back, relax, folks. It's the Rat Network. Stuart, I started off by this statistic, this study, and Americans are not proud, but a majority of Americans are. If you take the totality of it, they are. But Democrats are wailing and crying because they keep losing while Donald Trump keeps winning. Stuart, you're sitting in the excited states. What say you today?
Well, it's kind of really funny. I had the privilege of speaking to one of my extremely racist friends who lives in Canada, a guy named Carl Morano, who said, "Are you not ashamed being American?" He lives in Vancouver, Canada. And I said, "What are you smoking?" He goes, "Well, the president of the United States is like breaking up families. The president is like attacking Iran. I mean, it's like it's going to be Iraq all over again. Bush lying to American people. Like, how do you feel?" I said, "I feel fucking great, Carlo." I said, "But your comments over, from the river to the sea just make me now no longer friend you on Facebook and delete you as a friend." Why would I do such a thing like that? Because there are people piping news into your home that is so fragrantly erroneous and full of lies that I just can't take it anymore. And, David, I'm so happy we started this broadcast 5.5 years ago, because I can say and look them straight in the face as I've been telling you this for the last half a decade. And I'm going to continue to tell you this. Here in the United States, free America in Florida is not like almost socialism communist in New York, where all of my hedge fund Wall Street buddies are lining up to get homes in South Florida, whether from Palm Beach to Miami. Real estate is bolstering. I got to tell you, you in Canada are absolutely sheltered from the facts. What facts? Well, number one, that you're economically sound. You Google it, you find some left-wing propaganda thing. Your country is the best country in the world, economically, socially, in every which way. Yeah, I challenge you on that. I'd like to challenge you that you get to keep more money in your pocket than we do. Well, I don't think I have to challenge you too hard on
Where
that.
did you hear
If
that?
you graduate,
Where did you hear that?
Oh, good old Carlo Morano.
Oh,
Carlo Morano.
Carlo, produce your T4s, buddy. I challenge you to. That's a load of crap. Come on.
And then it goes further on about how mean and absurd we are because of like the migrant labor that we're throwing out. I said, don't you work for the largest cruise line in the world, Royal Caribbean? And let me tell you something. How many slave wage people on that ship do you have compared to your salary? Like, you sleep in this nice big cabin because you're a senior officer on a ship, but I think the rest of the people sleep like cockroaches. I don't think here you care about that. Listen, David, I am so tired of the left eviscerating anything positive in this country. Donald Trump, which is the focus of this rant, has a win in Iran, had a win with the Abraham Accords, had a win with the Supreme Court on shutting down these radical judges. What are radical judges? Yeah, this is also called around. Don't you think it's God that he's a king? I mean, the only king in politics is the representatives of the Democratic Party. Literally, they have shown how bad politics can be. Not the Republicans. The Republicans have infighting. They argue amongst themselves as a party should. It shouldn't be you're either a friend of me or an enemy of the state. And that's how the Democrats have run their party into the ground, whereby a socialist, a social democrat, a socialist, a communist is now the presumptive nominee for mayor of New York. Now, I got to tell you, that's an AOC, that's a Bernie Sanders taking a victory lap. Hey, man, that's the whole flippin' squad. They're all friggin' socialist, communists, and in some cases, I'm going to call them Arab terrorists. Why am I calling them terrorists? Because they want death to America, death to Israel, and they do it and smile in your face. They want to have five times a day the sound for prayer now in New York. Now, if you've heard what went on in England, there's 60 million people in England, approximately. But 4 million Muslims have taken over about 20 cities in its entirety. And if you think that they're here to represent the values of England, they have now realized they're not. And you know what? It's a little bit too little, too late. Texas has stepped in to end their little vitriol, little city practice on creating a racist city. What's a racist city? Not of all whites, not of all blacks, but of just Muslims. Yes, that doesn't fit the American way. But again, Donald Trump can't take a victory lap. They try and get him in the courts for 4 years. They try and get him 4 years before he was even trying to go reelect. He was trying to be put in jail. That was their only plan. The Democrats had one plan on taking the White House, Donald Trump in jail. They had no backup plan. They have no backup plan to deal with him as president. Little Chucky is making his constituents read the 900 pages, but yet fails to recall Nancy Pelosi walking out with the how many thousand-page bill, David? Can you find that for me? How many thousand pages was that bill? You got to vote yes to see what's inside. That is where it gets absurd. I got to tell you, it's not the Republicans being the obstinate bunch. We got rid of the Tea Party years ago. They failed. They really did. Because they were too extreme. The party got rid of most of the Tea Party. Why can't the left get rid of most of the Social Democrats, David?
Oh, Stuart, it's so funny how what you're saying here is on the Dems. I'm talking about the reps. I think the Republicans have got it right. I think what's freaking people out right now and why people are, why Republicans are so proud of their country is very simple. That Americans are seeing what U.S. is really was based on. Now, you can love or hate the United States. I really don't care what your feelings, what your sentiment. A lot of people, Stuart, the guy in British Columbia doesn't represent Canada. Your friend's an ass. And he's quite frankly, when I speak to people in BC, it's as bad as speaking to somebody in California. They're just in a different freaking world. Okay. Look, I know people, my son was just in Houston, Texas over the weekend. And he's telling me, he goes, oh my God, you can't imagine what's going on here. People are working, people are happy. There's an economic boom. There's all this excitement happening here in Houston, Texas. And you're asking yourself, why don't we feel that in Montreal? Why don't we feel that in Toronto? Why don't we feel that in other cities? It's because what you said at the beginning was right. The United States is a leader. The United States is a powerhouse. The United States is going back to what it's based on. All right. The American dream. The American dream was not about socialism. The American dream wasn't about religious domination by a, yes, I could say it was based on Christian values, but it was not a religious society in that sense. But the United States was built on freedom of opportunity, freedom of growth, freedoms. And yet here we are. What we're seeing is Donald Trump is trying to bring that back. When you look at what the judge in the Supreme Court stopped last week, Stuart, at a 6-3 vote, okay? Hey, listen, 6-3 vote was very, very simple.
And how about Jim Brown, her critical victory, like, hey, how the Republicans are so bad, but she hailed the Democrats when they went to try and do it.
We know Joe Biden put in a bunch of parrots in the Supreme Court to echo whatever the Democrats want. But the reality is that the whole thing about citizenship, to say that you're born in the United States is an illegal makes you automatically American. I really don't care what the forefathers taught 200 years ago, 250 years ago. Be real today. Don't play both sides. Don't say one day that the Constitution is irrelevant and the next day the Constitution is relevant. Either you're following the Constitution or you're not following the Constitution. And that's what Donald Trump is doing. He's following the Constitution from A to Z, and he's saying this is what it's going to be. And no lower court is going to be able to stop him. This is the only game that we're seeing right now. The game of the Dems is about trying to stop the progression that Donald Trump has created, the prosperity he's bringing. You know what? He did bring Mark Carney, the Prime Minister of Canada, to his knees because Mark Carney is a putz. He thinks he could stand up to Donald Trump and say, I can beat this guy. And at the end of the day, Trump did exactly what he's been doing. You want to start up with me? No problem. Here's a baseball bat to the head, you dipshit. And that's exactly what he did. He nailed him in the head. And Canadians over the weekend, and you saw the media, were freaking out. We're freaking out. But they weren't accusing Carney. And again, this is the media. The media here is just like the Democrats. They love the liberals. They're not going to destroy the liberals here. So they said, oh, Carney's being bullied by Donald Trump. No kidding. Stop. Why don't you state the obvious, people? That yes, the United States is the big player here.
David, but again, remind people that how many dollars out of every $100, how many dollars are attributed to American economy in Canada?
I don't remember the number and it's irrelevant, but listen, right now, Canada at one point was the biggest trading partner with the United States. I think we fell to number 2 to Mexico, but it just shows you that we have, as a country, we were number 1. We were important to the U.S. The U.S. was excessively important to Canada, and we blew it under Trudeau and now under Carney because they're smarter than everybody. The reality is Donald Trump won't get an ounce of credit. And though he was just, put out for the Nobel Peace Prize, which people were like, how dare he? He attacked Iran. You gave it to fucking Yasser Arafat, you pieces of shit. You gave a terrorist a Nobel Peace Prize. But Donald Trump, who is actually fighting, who got 4 countries into the Abraham Accords, who actually revamped the Middle East with Netanyahu, no, we shouldn't do that. When are you going to give Donald Trump the win? You see, what the Democrats want to do, Stuart, is to push guys like Mamdani, who refuses to go back on his statement of globalizing the Intifada. Hakeem Jeffrey says, "Oh, you should really, you should really explain what that means." No, Hakeem, you need to get rid of this guy. Okay.
Well, Hakeem is no different. Listen, Hakeem is a big fan of this. So,
Stuart, the funny thing was the commentary over the weekend was that the Republicans have figured out how to talk to middle America. The Democrats are now talking to the elitists and talking to the left and talking to these socialist lovers and these university people. And if you like Mamdani and this is what the Democrats are going to stand for 2026, the Republicans are going to win the House again. The Republicans are going to win the Senate again. Because if you want to win, you need to understand what middle America wants. Middle America wants to be patriotic. Middle America wants to be proud of its country. Middle America wants to win. Middle America is tired of being beaten up by the Democrats, and they finally woke up to realize that. And when you offend 77 million people who voted for Donald Trump, and Kamala Harris didn't get any more votes than Joe Biden did in any single, county, region, you name it, it sends a clear message that you are disconnected. So when I see this, Stuart, these comments, these things that, what he's doing all over the place, as a Canadian, I'm like, man, I wish I had that kind of leader in my country who had the intestinal fortitude to do things, to effect change. It isn't always popular, but boy, is it effective. Stuart, I know you got to run. So last word to you, my friend. What say you as we wrap up today?
You know what I got to say? Carlo Morano, you should go back at sea. Much better there. Except this time, I'm going to let corporate America know that you don't belong in that special cabin, that's unfair and it's unreasonable. And you should have the same accommodations as the people that work on the ship.
Oh, okay, Stuart. So I love where you attack people again. So that's it, folks. That's it for today. We'll see you guys on Wednesday. Please check out our YouTube channel, theletnetwork.com. So Wednesday, people. Goodbye.